such a time as this.
And welcome back to For Such a Time as This. I'm your host, Pastor James Pittman. Wanted to revisit the issue of the United Methodist Church. Many people are asking, how did we get to the point to where they are voting on something that's clearly not biblical? The sexuality, the LGBT ideology clearly is not compatible with the Bible. So the question is, how did they get there? And my answer is, they didn't get there overnight. Let me play this clip, and then I want to talk further about it.
So people ask me, do you have to read the Bible literally? And the answer to that sort of hinges on what part of it you're reading. So when you go to the beginning, you read the story of Adam and Eve and the Garden of Eden. Those are archetypal stories. They're really not trying to tell us a history of some ancient people who lived millennia or maybe hundreds of thousands of years ago. They're trying to tell us about ourselves. And so in those stories, we don't read them so much literally, we read the truth in them. They're archetypal stories, and we also are Adam and Eve. If you miss that, if you try to read that as history and you fail to understand that the real import of those texts is to tell us about ourselves, you've missed the truth of those stories. But you come to the Gospels and the stories of Jesus, and those become, well, we read those much more literally. Now we recognize even in the Gospel accounts, there are different ways of telling the story. So I read them, and I take the main idea and the things that Jesus is saying, but for instance, Jesus ascends to heaven from where? In one gospel, he ascends to heaven from the Galilee. In another gospel, he ascends to heaven 90 miles south of there in Jerusalem at Bethany. So if I'm reading them literally, I have a problem. But if I'm reading them and saying, okay, these are two different accounts, they're two different recollections of the same story, I'm not so caught up in did it happen in Bethany or Jerusalem, but I believe it happened.
All right, so if you read one gospel, it says that he ascended from Bethany. If you read another one, he ascended from Galilee. I looked because when I saw that, I was like, whoa, I don't remember that. I must have forgotten. I did some research. I didn't forget because it kind of caught me off guard because I'm thinking, I remember pretty much the apparent contradiction in scriptures. I missed that one. Guess what? He missed that one too because it's not there. It's not there. He's talking about Luke in the Mount of Olives in Bethany, just outside of Jerusalem. Then I guess from Galilee, he may be talking about Mark 16 when he speaks to his gospel and didn't say he was taken up to heaven. But it doesn't say that he was taken up from Galilee. But anyway, there's no contradiction or apparent contradiction in the gospel of Jesus' ascension. I thought I forgot that, but I didn't. But I want to go back to how they got there in the first place. That is the United Methodist Church. That video you saw was taken off of the United Methodist Church's website. And so this is one of their theologians speaking and teaching about their view on the Bible. And when you read the story of Adam and Eve, we're not to read as though we're reading about ancient people, but we are Adam and Eve. Now, again, I want to go through these scriptures because I want to show you how the progression works when you start to downplay the authority of Scripture. And I want to be careful. I want people to understand. I'm not looking to gloat here, and I'm not trying to be dogmatic, but we do need to be dogmatic when it comes to the truth. So I want to look at this. So we go to Romans. Remember, he says that when we read about Adam and Eve, we're not talking about literal ancient people. Romans 5:12 says, therefore, just as sin came into the world through one man and death through sin, and so death spread to all men because all sin. For sin indeed was in the world before the law was given. But sin is not counted where there is no law, yet death reigns from Adam to Moses. He's talking about original sin, Paul is here, how original sin spread to mankind, and it was through the sin of one man. If Adam wasn't real, you've got a problem. You've got a problem with sin and how it spread to all men. Also, if Adam is not real, if he's, allegorical and he's not literal, then anyone who's reading the Bible for the first time in the United Methodist Church will then say, if Adam isn't real, maybe Moses isn't real either. Then he goes on, Romans 5:15, but the free gift is not like the trespass. For if many died through one man's trespass, again, for if many died through one man's trespass, much more have the grace of God and the free gift by the grace of that one man, Jesus Christ, abound for the many. Again, if someone is reading the Bible and they're a novice and they believe what the United Methodist teaches, if Adam isn't a real man, then maybe Jesus wasn't a real man. If Adam is allegory, maybe the person of Jesus Christ himself is allegory. If we can't take Adam literally, maybe we should and cannot take Jesus literally. Paul clearly sees them as literal people. And then you go to Mark 10, Jesus is speaking. They're going back and forth, the Pharisees, with Jesus, and they're saying, bring up the topic of divorce. And in Mark 10, Jesus says that they said to Jesus, Moses allowed a man to write a certificate of divorce and send her away. And Jesus said to them, because of your hardness of heart, he wrote you this commandment. But from the beginning of creation, God made them male and female. From the beginning of creation, sixth day, the beginning of creation, Adam and Eve. From the beginning of creation, Jesus now makes an entire theology of marriage based on the one man and the one woman. If, in fact, Adam is not real, then maybe I don't have to abide by the theology Jesus put forth. Therefore, marriage between one man and one woman. You see, if Adam and Eve isn't real, God didn't create Adam and Eve, one man and one woman, then maybe I can have two men. Maybe I can have two women. Maybe I can have two daddies. Maybe we can have two mommies. You see, when you put aside the authority of Scripture, then you can make the Bible say whatever you want it to say. And the United Methodists did not get there overnight. They got there through the years, first and foremost, setting aside the authority of Scripture. The only way you can arrive at the LGBTQ theology is that you set aside the authority of Scripture. It's very clear. It's very clear when you read the Scriptures the way they were intended. Yes, some of it is allegory. Yes, some of it is songs. And yes, some of it is stories. But Adam and Eve were literal. Male and female becoming one, literal. Because if you lose the first Adam, inevitably you will lose the second Adam.
For such a time as this.